Well, Spida Everitt was our first guest back on our third episode in late 2019. A lot has happened in football. A lot has happened in the world since then. And it's great to get back catching up with Spida now. His first game for the club in round one, 1993. Danny Frawley was the captain during that and his next couple of seasons at AFL level. And Spida, obviously, a key part of that St Kilda team that kicked on in the post-Danny Frawley years as well. But Spida, thanks for jumping on again.
No worries, no problem at all. Absolutely.
I guess your memories, if you go back to those early days as a teenager coming in with Danny Frawley as the captain, what are some of those memories of Spud?
Oh, look, I think you look now and you see, you have these leadership groups, you have dual captains, you have, all these leaders around the footy club. But, those days you had one leader, and that was Danny Frawley. He was the captain, and whatever he said, everybody did. And what I loved most, I think, about leadership and, captains those days, they led on the field and they led off the field. So he knew the difference between when to be absolutely serious and then when to actually go out there and enjoy yourself as well. But, when you're 18-year-old, and then when we're playing under 19s and, you walk into the change rooms and you first meet and, you see Tony Lockett and Nicky Winmar and Danny Frawley, and they come up and shake your hand and they introduce themselves. It's like, oh, yeah, like I don't know who you are. And ever since then, he's just one of the great captains.
Spida, you were a pretty cheeky type of fella. I mean, you still are, but a bit of a two-parter for me. But was there any point in those few years under Spud that he had to pull you into line and you copped a spray from him? And secondly, he was also pretty cheeky at times. Was there any kind of locker room pranks or anything that you remember with Spud?
Yeah, look, he didn't really pull us aside. He used to have chats to us. There's no doubt about that. And I think he had chats to everyone. And I still, I suppose the more fonder memory of that was not even when I was playing. It was only a couple of years ago when I was inducted into the St Kilda Hall of Fame, and before that he gave me a call and just said congratulations and kind of that work rate and the different work ethic that I showed towards the back end of my career there at St Kilda proved that I should have been there. So just even getting that and getting a personal letter written from him, telling just not how proud he was, but just in a way about how I've been able to change. So, I've still got that letter that, he only sent a couple of years ago. So I found that more so, the timing of that more so than, what happened, in the early 90s when he was our captain. But look, the prank side of Spud, I think, everybody enjoyed. And, we all love a prank and, we all love having fun. But, I think, for me, the main ones were when the boys, he used to love dyeing his hair, but he wouldn't tell anyone he used to dye his hair. He was the oldest part of the crew down there. So one day he put a bit of a rinse through it, but it went a bit plum. So it was the plum rinse, and the boys used to get his footy card and scratch off his hair and draw it in the plum rinse and then get him to sign it. And the plum rinse footy card was definitely one of the highlights. And I think the other one I always remembered. I can't really remember who was driving, but I remember Gordon Foe got injured in Adelaide. It was Adelaide or WA, and he couldn't fly home. So Danny Spud took his keys and said, "Don't worry, we'll get your car home for you." And we went straight out to the pub as soon as we landed in Melbourne, and it was like a semi-race to get to the pub. And he actually smashed Fody's car into the back of another player's car. So I don't know, I can't remember exactly who was driving, but I know Spud was right amongst the whole lot. But they said, "Oh, that's right, we'll worry about that when we get out of the pub. Let's just go and have a beer first."
I was going to ask you what were the differences in the Spuds that basically throughout the AFL. You had the Spud as the captain, you had the Spud as the coach or assistant coach, and then you had the Spud as the media personality. That all those we sort of see a lot of in videos and that sort of thing. But you also had Spud behind the scenes, which I guess you got to know a bit of. Was there anything that you sort of go, that's how I remember Spud as the person, but not anything attached to the AFL or just who he was.
I just think he was like, it doesn't matter. And as you said, he wore 3 or 4 different hats, and he was able to manage those very, very well. But I think like when you see him, he was just a down to earth mate. He was just, I still remember when Greg Stafford, fractured my cheekbone in the middle of the ground, and we're going to the tribunal because I rang him on the Friday and I said, look, I'll kick 2 goals and I'll take it easy on you, just having a bit of a laugh when he was coaching Richmond. And he said, all right, and I kicked 2, and then Greg Stafford fractured my cheekbone, and I went off to hospital to get it popped back out, and Spud rings me and he goes, he didn't mean it. Just try and look after him at the tribunal because they needed him. Like he position, you could still have that mateship and that fun and that character. It all boils down to, he was just a great bloke. On and off the field, didn't matter when you ran into him. This is what makes it so devastating, what we've had to go through. But, he was just a lovable character every moment you'd meet him. And it doesn't matter if he was a coach, if he was a player, if you were sitting by him in the footy, if you were out having dinner, no matter him, he was just that, larger than life character that we all loved.
Last one from me on that. Obviously, you would have done probably a bit of match sim. I know Plugger and Stewie and things like that were down there. But did you ever get the chance, sort of in sessions, to obviously run alongside of him or play alongside of him? And I guess what were his strengths? I mean, we always spoke about his good record on Gary Ablett Senior because of his closing speed, his strength one-on-one against guys like Dunstall and those sorts of things. Did you get a chance to see him as a player up close at training?
Yeah, look, I think his strength, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, was being able to switch on and do the hard yards, and it didn't matter, those days what it was. If it was 400s or 200s, he would absolutely rip straight in, and didn't matter what the weather conditions were. And I think a sign of that was the fact that after every training session, you get into a couple of 100 sit-ups with Lowy, and so I think as much as you are a character and you have fun, the commitment to actually footy and getting yourself better. And I think he's one to say, wasn't blessed with the most skills, but at the same time, he was one of those, you cross that white line, he absolutely has a crack. You cross the other side, and that's all forgotten, and he moved on. But he trained the way that he played, and that was hard out every time.
Spida, as someone who played with Spud, who knew him off the field, how do you reckon he'd feel about Spud's game and the new Danny Frawley centre at Moorabbin?
Look, I think inside he'd be chuffed. If that was, it's so hard where you see these things and, you look at, the Warnie stand and you think, why don't they do this before anything? Why can't they make these decisions a lot earlier? It was always going to be a Danny Frawley stand. I think, he's the greatest player, one of our greatest leaders at the Kilda Footy Club. So, look, I think, I think he'd be absolutely stoked, and I think he'd sit there and, kind of sit there and go, why did it get to this anyway? So it's just a real hard situation, but I think he'd be humble, and he wouldn't want all the fuss, but at the same time, he knows for a fact that it will help so many others. And, it absolutely, the game itself, helping so many others and bringing light on the situation when we know he did. And, we only had to see his funeral, how many people got up and said, it's time that, things start to change. So I think that side of it, absolutely. But why to get to that, that's probably the only harsh one.
You do plenty of work in the media and everything yourself post-career and that. Has there been any temptation at any time to steal one of these jokes that Spud's told at any point, knowing how funny he's been over the years and just sort of recycle it, because you've got the Queensland crowd who probably don't know a lot about him. So you'd be able to get away with it, I'd reckon.
Oh, absolutely. I think you borrow anyone's, you don't borrow it, you don't steal it, you just add a little bit here and there to make it your own. That's all you do. So, yeah, look, I think the craft of, Spud being able to get up and just absolutely roast everyone, you can only do that if you're friends with everyone as well. If you actually know these people and actually invest the interest and time to actually get to know them, that's the only time you can really do it. And that just goes to show how many people and the kind of person he is, because he knows so much personally about all these people and how far he can actually push people. So, yeah, look, I think, the great, unfortunately, it's because of the circumstances, it's great that, people do follow the game up here in Queensland. I am in Queensland, and, Danny Frawley name a few years ago probably wouldn't have been as big as it is now, unfortunately. But, it is sending a very, very strong message, and that's only not even through the AFL world, but definitely through other sports as well. So, if there's one positive that's come out of it, is being able to bring that awareness to it. So, absolutely. If there's any Spud jokes that I can just add a little bit of pepper on and run with, I'll be running with them.
As we let you go, mate, Nicky Winmar, Hall of Fame yesterday. You were in a rare position where you would have put the ball down his throat a few times and he would have put it down yours, leading out a full forward a few times. A superstar, I guess, a comment on Neil Elvis?
Yeah, look, I think, anybody that, just sat in the gym and only worked on his biceps and his pecs was unbelievable. He never worked on those chicken legs, but he had the best biceps and pecs in the business. But, yeah, look, I think when you look at, Cars or Nicky Winmar, he was just, he was fantastic. You call Lenny Hayes Rolls Royce, and, you can go through a lot of St Kilda names. But, when you see Nicky Winmar getting the ball on the wing, having a couple of bounces and just, doing that pass down, either Lowy or Plugger's throat, and, it's only going to sit around about 3 or 4 metres off the ground and travel 30 or 40 metres and absolutely be lace out. Absolutely loved it. So, yeah, for me, I think it's a great reflection on just a great player that he has been. And, the best thing about Winmar now, and I only ran into him and saw him at the Saints game a couple of weeks ago when he played the didgeridoo, that, he's got his life back on track, and, he's making the most of it. So it's just, it's fantastic to see. And it's great to see that, Winmar will be around the footy club for years and years to come. So I think that's another great story as well.
Spider, always great to catch up. You're always generous with your time, and thanks for jumping on.
No worries. And as we mentioned earlier, get out there, support the game, and it's going to be a huge game. And even in Queensland, we'll be supporting it here pretty hard. So go the Saints on Friday night. We can't wait.